The tension remained high even though Ethan wasn't present, likely preoccupied with honing his next pitch. Standing with his arms crossed by the hearth, Dad wasted no time. The situation is dire for Ethan, Jack. You must sell the shop as we have been discussing it. It's not a big deal. It pales in comparison to his career. A jab to the ribs was the effect of his remarks. Everything I've worked for, my store, my blood, my late nights, degraded into nothing. At first, when I opened my mouth to speak, only a harsh gasp escaped. As is her wont when she's anxious, Mom leaped in, her hands twisting a dish towel. Dear Jack, you have always been there for us. This is what family does when someone is lost, and Ethan is right now. All of us help each other out. She seemed to have already decided my answer, despite the softness and begging in her gaze. Discovering my voice was a great accomplishment. I am not capable of opening that store. Beloved by all. Chances were on Ethan's side. Am I supposed to take care of this? Dad clenched his jaw. Because he has promise. Sure, you're reliable, but Ethan has more potential to succeed. Without pause. What a hurtful word. Ethan is the racehorse, and after 8 years of grinding, I'm only a mule. It was a no-go for me. That's unfair. This is not for sale. At that moment, Ethan's shadow appeared, seemingly appearing out of nowhere. I had gone through blizzards for my tiny sister Claire, and now she was speaking up. No need to feel tied to that location, Jack. One option is to begin again. Her tone was casual, as if she were proposing that I try a different coffee brand. She simply averted her gaze, but I kept staring at her, hoping for a sign that she wasn't serious. Uncle Ray grunted and nodded. A family must remain united. My son, Ethan, is my first concern. Next, Mom, with a gentler yet firmer touch. Imagine everything he could do if given a new beginning. With each escalating sound, it was as if the walls were closing in on me. Ethan had already won them over, and he wasn't even here to confront me. The same old thing. Clutching my fists, I got to my feet. What now? Because Ethan never follows through on his promises, I should burn my life to the ground. What gives? I've been there for each and every one of you through thick and thin, and now you think that's not enough? With a hushed voice, Dad stepped closer. Keep this as simple as possible. This is an inquiry, not a plea. Want to know? The atmosphere in the room was heavy with what seemed like a command. Anticipation, evaluation, and that recognizable, long-standing lean toward Ethan. I snatched my coat. This is not for sale. That is my response. My mother chased after me. Jack, I beg you. However, I persisted. My chest ached as I drove home. Not merely wrath, but something more substantial. I was not considered a brother or son by them. They perceived it as a tool, a way to support their beloved son. By responding with a simple no, I foolishly believed I had escaped the problem, but I should have anticipated their persistence. Following that, there was no request. It was an opportunity for them to show me how far they would go to maintain Ethan's status quo. Claire texted me 3 days after I left Dad's house, and my phone buzzed. Tonight at 7 o'clock, there will be a family reception. Please attend. No, I would prefer an order without any explanation. I was about to disregard it, but then I felt a nagging sensation. Perhaps they would recognize Ethan's disaster for what it really was and come around. Unfortunately, I was incorrect. It seemed as if I had been here before the moment I entered the living room. Similar arrangements and faces, but with a heavier, different air. Dad repositioned himself by the hearth. Angry at the dish towel, Mom sat and twisted it. Uncle Ray clenched his fists as if he were getting ready to fight, and Claire looked away from me. The fact that Ethan was still absent ought to have alerted me, but I was occupied with bracing myself. Their smiles seemed overly contrite and staged, as if they had practiced them beforehand. My father coughed. Jack, we have been communicating. No problem with you keeping the store, but we must not allow Ethan to perish. Therefore, we are holding a vote to determine if you are still our family or not. Ultimately, the will of the majority counts. I was taken aback. Is it a vote? I felt like an outsider they could just dump. I let out a little resentful laugh. Is this for real? With her voice now steady, Mom nodded. I think it's the most equitable approach. What's important must be safeguarded. Ethan, defend what's important, not me. Coming in order, Dad went up first, Mom second, and Uncle Ray third. My final chance, Claire, I looked to. She'd slept on my couch when she was in a rent jam and sobbed on my shoulder when her ex-boyfriend left her. Hello, Claire. My voice is cracking, I remarked. While her father crossed his arms, she looked down at the floor, said something like, "Sorry, Jack," and then raised her hand. It's done. No more of you. Not only because of their decision, but the entire room whirled. They had just shown their hands and removed my presence after 8 years of showing up. With my chest tight and my voice strained, I stood there, my heart racing. Yes, I think we should change the topic and vote on something else. I rummaged through my coat for the shop's lease, which bore solely my name, as well as a letter I had written during our most recent meeting severing any financial links. Borrowing money and favors are out. I vote and I keep what's mine, I declared as I dropped the papers onto the coffee table. Gone were the grins. Dad's cheeks flushed. Tell me what I'm looking at. Bark, he yelled. Mom, she exclaimed. You can't, Jack. However, I interrupted her. It all began with you. I'm using it. As soon as Uncle Ray reached for the papers, I swiftly reclaimed them. Claire seems to have finally come to terms with her actions as she gazed on in disbelief. Ethan strutted in with an air of confidence, tossed his keys on the sideboard, and the door swung open. What was I omitting? His face lit up like a party-goer as he spoke. Everyone in the room started to laugh out loud. Dad scolded me. Families don't function like this. Mom began sobbing uncontrollably, clinging desperately to the towel. As he counted the papers, Ethan's smile wavered, but he quickly regained it and came over to me. Jack, please. Keep it simple. Feeling dramatic. Even though they had just voted me out of office with my own blood? In my hands, the lease like a delicate flower. I owe you nothing, it says. My store is off-limits to you. Even though he didn't push just yet, his gaze sharpened. The father pounded the mantel with his fist. You lack empathy, Jack. Ethan is battling for his own destiny. I returned his stare and am now defending my own. And then, cold and heavy, the betrayal set in. Their verbal and ritualized selection of their golden boy above me solidified their decision. I gathered the documents and keys and made my way to the door. I had just witnessed their actual nature, and it was more repulsive than I had anticipated. Nonetheless, this was far from over. Even though it was business as usual the day after they kicked me out, I had an uneasy feeling. No one answered the phone. The nail and paint parlor was deserted. Nobody does, not even Mrs. Carter, who has been a long-time customer of mine for gardening goods. Tom, my supplier, called me by midday. Are you going to close up shop, Jack? A lot of people are claiming that's it. It wrenched my gut. Does anyone have any authority to state that? After that, he paused. Chatter throughout the city. Your agreement to sell and move on was announced by Ethan at the pub last night. Declared it to be final. I felt a surge of fury. Nobody had asked me to do anything. However, Ethan was actively working to harm my firm by spreading false information and discouraging clients. Checking my sales report, I hung up the phone, my hands trembling. Cancellation of orders. No justifications. It wasn't only about the money. He was suffocating my means of subsistence. It was in my nature to want to go to his apartment and slap that smug smile off his face, but I was also aware that he had turned me into the villain. Afterwards, that afternoon, Claire appeared, pale and restless, holding her handbag tightly as if it were a protective barrier. Jack, there's something I have to convey to you. Just a whisper, she whispered. Hey there, Ethan. He switched gears and did something different. I got ready. Expel it. Gulping, she reacted. He approached me about getting a loan for his startup around a month ago. Since I was short on funds, he implored me to provide him with your store's details so he could wow potential investors. I didn't give it much consideration, but he utilized your business as security for a $20,000 loan application and forgeried your signature. My knees gave way. In order to steady myself, I reached for the counter. Excuse me. Emotions surged through Claire. Yesterday, I discovered the documents in his vehicle. You would be responsible if he had sent it already, but he hasn't. God, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Apologies didn't suffice. The town hadn't been duped by Ethan. Without my knowledge or consent, he attempted to rob me of my future. Every day would have brought a surprise notification from the bank if I hadn't checked my credit following the vote. It became too much for me to bear. My journey took me to Ethan's residence. In my fist, I crumpled the fake documents that Claire had given me. As if nothing were wrong with the world, he sipped his coffee carelessly while answering the door in his bathrobe. "Hello, Jack." "Hey there, dude." "No big deal," he said. I pushed the documents in his face. "Yes, this. Now you're fabricating my name after spreading false information regarding my store's closure? You're clearly dishonest." His smile remained fixed. "Your reaction is excessive. Those goods in the store just talk. Everyone loses track of time. The loan, too. Okay, I was going to spill the beans to you. Who says family pitches in? Splits the work." Almost as if I were his very own ATM. With a hushed whisper, I stepped closer. "I don't understand. I am not sharing this. You're the one who's messing me up because you're afraid of being alone when you fail." As he sipped his coffee, he shrugged. "You own the store. I am completely bereft. Take it easy." Before I did anything I would come to regret, I stepped away. However, the rage persisted, building up. Ethan lacked remorse and instead acted entitledly. Was from the beginning. My reputation took a nosedive the very first day the falsehood spread about my store. However, the forgery, deeply twisted, that was a knife wound to the back. I spent hours on the phone with Tom, pleading with him to be my supply guarantor, and I contacted my bank to freeze my credit. Nothing was working, and Ethan couldn't care less about the company's financial woes. The family's decision became clearer after he bet my life like it was nothing. He was chosen because, regardless of who was crushed, he had always been the one they would bend for. My battle had escalated beyond defending my shop. Now it was a struggle to escape his destruction. Claire texted me once again 2 days after discovering Ethan's fake loan documents. "I would like to arrange a meeting at the park for 3 at afternoon. There's more I can provide." Her apologies were beginning to ring hollow, so I nearly opted not to go, but my curiosity ultimately won out. Her expression betrayed her lack of sleep as she patiently waited on a bench adjacent to the weathered swing set. Shaky breath. "No prologue, no. Forget the loan. This is even worse, Jack. It's been fascinating to me." A folder containing bank statements and notes that she had scribbled was extracted from her bag. 4 years, Ethan has been taking thousands of dollars out his dad's retirement fund. Whenever Dad inquired, he'd say it was because of awful investments. I was silent last month when I discovered the transfers. Skipped believing it. With the binder in hand, I flipped through pages of mind-boggling figures. Dates coincided with Ethan's ambitious plans. The new venture, a plan to sell used cars, and even some crypto gibberish. "For how much?" In a low voice, I inquired. She claimed it was over $40,000. The store was merely his most recent addiction. Just as Dad always does, he thought you'd give in. My initial reaction was shock, and then revulsion. In addition to being an utter failure, he was a parasite who sucked them dry while they applauded his every move. Claire continued, her speech coming out in a torrent. "Also, I came across texts. Claiming that you would give in because you're too weak, he boasted to his friends about his success in manipulating Jack into helping him out. He has been making fun of you and everyone else." With a gentle slide over the bench, her phone appeared. "The shop will be mine soon, and Jack is cowardly. Simple monetary gain." Reading it made my hands quiver. I'd lived my whole life under his shadow, cleaning up after him, and he still treated me like a punchline. My gaze landed on Claire. "What gives?" Her lip was clenched. "Jack, I cast my ballot against you. Unfortunately, I was incorrect. It roused me to see him disparage you in that way. Even when we were little, he would play tricks on us." I had stopped caring about her crimson eyes and tears. You felt a smack in the chest from the truth. Ethan's golden crown was more of a scam than a lucky charm. With a fragile but persistent voice, Mom invited me to dinner on Sunday. The only reason I went was to get them all into one room, not because of her. It appeared as though no one had touched the table. 4 grins, some mashed potatoes, and some roast chicken. Uncle Ray broke open a drink while Dad cut the meat. Claire sat quietly, trying to avoid my stare. Typical of him, Ethan was tardy. After they had settled down, I waited. His forks clanked as he got to his feet. As I set Claire's folder down on the table, I announced that I had something to share. Everything from Ethan's texts to bank documents fell out. His father's retirement fund has been pilfered by him for a long time. Is it the store? His most recent acquisition. What you're doing is feeding a leech, not saving him. Mom's fork dropped on the floor. Slowly, Dad's expression turned serious. Oh, come on. What the hey? A low snarl escaped him. With my index finger, I indicated the text. Peruse it. He is making fun of us as we're talking. Then Ethan swung in, his tie undone, a grin on his face. Here is a pleasant aroma. Is there a special reason? His smile faded as he laid eyes on the folder. Then what is it? Under her breath, Mom murmured. We were robbed, according to Jack. Sharp and insincere, he laughed. He's trying to bait you into betraying me by telling lies. Despite her voice quivering, Claire held steady. The answer is no. The messages have been received, Ethan. What you said was boastful. The room parted in two. As he scanned the statement, Dad's hands trembled. I was the only one for whom Mom's eyes welled up. With him. Uncle Ray stuttered, Jesus, and Ethan's charisma began to wane. People are reacting too strongly. The proof of his outburst was a noose drawing closer to him. Instead of yelling, I simply observed them staring at him. Even if the golden kid had lost some of his luster, I still had more to show them for what their choice had cost. After Claire defended me, there was a crushing quiet. Standing there, cornered, Ethan's smile turned into a fury. With his neck muscles taut, Dad stared at the bank statement. Uncle Ray did nothing but stare at the table while Mom sobbed into her napkin. I couldn't let the situation to calm down. Even though I kept my voice firm and you voted me out to protect him, he has been stealing from you non-stop. Your scapegoating of me is over. Dad, smash the paper, he said. Your family would never do anything like this, Jack. Unlike that dreadful lawyer, you don't air your dirty laundry. I moved ahead. You treated me like garbage when you voted me out, turning it into a business transaction. The receipts are all I'm trying to show you. This is bullshit, he's twisting it. Ethan said as he sprang for the folder. His Uncle Ray seized his arm and pinned him to the ground. Ethan finally learned his lesson as he sat down and listened to his roar. I looked over at my dad. Do you not see that he has an advantage over you? You always bend because of that. Even when Dad's cheeks turned red, he remained silent. As though he still had a trick up his sleeve, Ethan grinned. Notify him that I exerted strain. Ethan glanced at his dad for a second before returning to me. All right, he spit. My dad had a gaming debt to several bookies years ago. I stepped in to save him, bearing the brunt of the scrutiny from the police. His debt to me is substantial. Dad's face contorted with lines of embarrassment as he lowered his head. My mom let out a gasp. Paul. Is that so? Just barely audible, he nodded. I preferred that you remain unaware. Without charisma or skill, Ethan had no leverage in the room. Keeping Dad's secret in a tight grip was a form of blackmail. I studied each one, Mom's refusal to believe, Claire's shame, Uncle Ray's disbelief. I warned you that you're putting yourself in danger by choosing him. But I've decided to stop playing. A legal notification that I had prepared after the vote barred them from my shop, my accounts, and my life was pulled out of my pocket, a folded piece of paper. As a result, it landed on the table. This concludes it. There will be no more favors or relatives. This is a bluff, Ethan said with a scowl. My brother's goal had already failed, so my family decided to cut me out after I refused to sell my shop to save him. 2 of them smiled. As a general rule, the majority rules. I just saw my sister watch. I responded with a smile and suggested that we put this to a vote instead. I misplaced a piece of paper seconds later, and the entire room went into a frenzy. I'm 34 years old, and I own a little hardware store in a remote area of Ohio. My name is Jack. I own it, even though it's hardly more than a few shelves filled with tools, paint cans, and nails. After my dad told me I would never amount to anything, I built it from the ground up 8 years ago with every cent I had. You see, I've always been the one to show there and repair things. When my mom's sink bursts, the kitchen floods. When my sister Claire's old Chevy dies, I drive her to work. And when my cousins get into fights at the bar, I pull them apart. For the longest time, my family was my first priority. However, my older brother Ethan? There's no one like him. He has been our shining star since we were little, consistently earning straight A's, a bachelor's degree, and the wailing pride of our mom at every turn. I felt like I didn't stand out since I was the reserved, dependable one. The store is my evidence that I am not invisible. Something tangible and enduring was created by my hands. However, everything fell apart last year. The tech startup that was Ethan's most recent grand scheme failed miserably, and he is now in over his head in debt. Like clockwork, I expected him to charm his way out of it. Then someone from the family showed up, and it had nothing to do with a screwdriver. They wanted my business, and my entire life, to save him. Growing up in Ethan's shadow gave me a false impression about the depth of partiality. It was a sledgehammer blow to my ego, and I'm still processing it and trying to put the pieces of my family puzzle together. Blood, I used to believe, was the glue that held us together, stronger than allegiance or selflessness ever could be. I was completely mistaken, it seems. This story is a jumble of treachery and determination, so allow me to take you back to the beginning. When the people you care about betray you without a second thought, it will make you question the value of family. About 6 months ago, Ethan's tech firm failed, which didn't surprise me. A gadget that will transform home security, he boasted about for years. Investors were enthusiastic at first, but eventually lost interest, leaving him with a $75,000 shortfall. He once walked into my shop as I was closing up for the night, wearing that same carefree smile as if nothing was wrong. Beginning with Jack, my man, he leaned on the counter. Could you do me a favor and provide me a short-term loan of $20,000? I will reimburse you after this situation is resolved. Under the whir of the fluorescent lights, I fixed my gaze on him. He is well aware that my store seldom makes enough money to cover the electricity bills. Straight up, I told him no. I am not a bank, Ethan. Your plans are visible to me. They are unsuccessful. The risk is too great for me to take. He simply shrugged, claimed to understand, and departed without a fuss. I nearly experienced remorse. Mom gave me a call that night. As if she had just been sobbed, her voice trembled. Hey Jack, Ethan's gonna need your help. He's in a lot of pain, and you're the one who can alleviate it. Please, give it some thought. I felt a knot of guilt tighten in my gut. From the moment he triumphed in the 3rd grade spelling bee and I received a pat on the head for managing not to trip over my shoelaces, she has continually overlooked him. However, I refused to budge. My own bills are due, Mom. He must discover the solution on his own. With a heavy and disappointed sigh, she hung up the phone. That was my assumption, but I failed to account for the extent to which Ethan had a hold on everyone. I went to the diner for coffee the following morning. Since I launched my shop, I've gone to the same area. I was beckoned over by Old Man Pete, who has been servicing tractors for longer than I have lived. I heard that you are doing well while Ethan is having a hard time. His eyebrows arching, he spoke. Halfway to my mouth, I froze. Can you please clarify what you mean? With a hushed voice, Pete leaned forward. Just yesterday, Ethan was here boasting about how much money is stashed away in that store, but you're not going to provide him a hand. Defended the idea that family members betraying one another in such a way. I clenched my fist around the cup. My heart raced with rage. He was trying to salvage face by painting me as the villain in his tales. The harm was done, but I forced a laugh and told Pete it was bull. Orders were cancelled by 2 regulars by midday. Over the phone, their voices were muffled. Ethan was the one with the megaphone, and word was getting around. It was that night that I drove home, my hands trembling on the wheel. Ethan has always had a knack with words. Occupied extra credit by charming teachers and evading speeding charges. However, this was unique. He wasn't merely evading repercussions. He was trying to float himself by pulling me beneath. The words of Pete hurt like salt in a gash, and I couldn't stop thinking about Mom's pleading phone call. He turned all my efforts into his sad tale, even though I've spent years showing that I'm more than what they made me out to be. A part of me wanted to give him a call and insist he straighten it out, but I knew he'd simply smile and avoid the topic. A change occurred instead as I sat in my truck outside the business, gazing at the worn sign and Jack's Hardware. Money was no longer the only factor. It was my worst suspicion that Ethan and his family wouldn't quit, and I was right. I never expected them to come for what is rightfully mine, but they had always rallied around him. My mistake was becoming much more apparent. My dad gave me a call 1 week following Ethan's visit. He had a rough voice. "Strictly business. Show up at this place tonight, please. We ought to have a conversation." I could see it had nothing to do with getting a ladder. The driveway was jam-packed as I approached their house. Uncle Ray's dilapidated pickup, Claire's beat-up Chevy, and Mom's sedan. My gut felt sick. That was no conversation. It was a trap. They sat on the worn-out plaid sofa and a variety of chairs in the living room, as if they were a council of war, waiting to go inside. "Try me," he stared back at me. "So, you're going to fire us for this?" Dad stood up, his voice quivering. "You interrupted me before I could nod." Suddenly, Ethan sprung to his feet and snatched my shirt. "So you believe you're more superior to us?" When he hissed, I forcefully pushed him aside. "No, I simply quit falutin' to your fabrications." As Claire intervened, she begged Jack not to. However, I raised my hand and declared, "I vote myself out of this mess," essentially paraphrasing what they had said. I no longer required their tally, but the irony remained. The majority had prevailed. "You should have dealt with that debt on your own. Instead, you allowed him to use me to pay it, so I went back to my dad for one last time." Though he parted his lips, he uttered no sound. Even when Mom cried out, "We're still family," her words were meaningless. Their quiet spoke more than any debate, so I snatched my coat and made my way to the exit. "Your actions will be regretted," Ethan shouted after me. I turned away from them because the battle had ended and I had shown them the truth. I would confront whatever was ahead on my own terms, even if it meant facing it alone. Here I am, Jack, brushing sawdust off the floor of my shop, exactly 1 month after that last dinner. Word on the street is that Ethan is currently in Cleveland, operating under a false identity, and that he escaped the following day. Because I made him face the truth, Dad is now a shadow of his former self. Even though I don't always answer my phone, every now and then my mom leaves me voicemails with gentle requests for healing that ring like echoes of a past I no longer belong in. Claire is unique. I've been passing her legal advice from my files as she sues Ethan for her portion of the retirement scandal. Even though it's a fight, the shop is still mine. Half of my customers left because of Ethan's false claims that I was closing, but some, like old Pete from the restaurant, remain loyal and keep coming back. Rebuilding my confidence one sale at a time, I am demonstrating that I can stand on my own 2 feet. The rumors, the forgery of the loan, and the additional jabs that Ethan hurled caused deeper wounds than I had anticipated. I can't help but tighten my fists on occasion when I dream about the way he smirked as he sank me. My 8 years of devotion, during which I was their rock, came to naught because of a vote that didn't take me into account. I wept myself silly a few times over it, but now the pain is starting to go away. There are no longer any members of my family stopping by to borrow or beg, and the business has taken on an air of weird tranquility. Thanks to Claire's proof, I was able to escape the loan trap that night, and the legal notice I dropped ensured that nobody could take what rightfully was mine. Ethan has lost all power because his threats were ineffective. My word on the street is that Sunday dinners are no more. Parents are too embarrassed to host, and Mom can't stand the sight of empty seats. I wasn't immune to Ethan's consequences, which happened swiftly. After everything that has happened, trust still lingers like a ghost whenever I consider their decision to choose him. But now that I'm not burdened by their expectations, I sleep easier. The only thing you need to save yourself from a sinking ship is the courage to leap, not their vote, I've discovered. My life has been built upon this leap, and I am still here, sweeping my floor. It's sufficient. The video's viewers are appreciated. Please let us know what you thought if this story moved you. The encouragement to keep making, day after day, comes from your liking, no matter how little. We will see you in the subsequent video.